Welcome to Salute Your Sports. I'm Kamen Enchev with Drew Brackett and Tom Castleman. We've got our full NFL preseason preview today, college football talk, betting locks of the week, some more fun segments. Really looking forward to a really fun show. Drew, welcome back to the show. Tom, I'm excited to do some more chat with you as usual.
Yeah, it's nice having the whole crew back together. Very exciting stuff. We're basically just going to be all football, maybe touching a couple other things during locks of the week where we are going to have some plaudits, some laurels, and a little bit of a different system moving into the NFL.
Yeah, it should be fun. But of course, we'll talk NFL starting first here. And guys, we'll break down every division here later on. We'll make a Super Bowl pick even. I think we all know who Common will pick. But
no
first,
surprises.
We'll really go with who will take home the MVP this year. Common, you thinking Mr. Mahomes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously thinking Patrick Mahomes here. I think the fact that he didn't win the MVP the last 2 years bodes well for him. I think we don't see people winning MVP every single season. I think, he thrives off proving people wrong. His first year as the starter, he proved people wrong that he should have been the first pick, and he won the MVP in 2018. Then in 2019, he has an injury. He wins Super Bowl MVP. You look at the last 3 years, he's been the most consistent, the best stats. What's his motivation this year? The fact that they lost in the Super Bowl, he didn't play well in the Super Bowl. I think he's motivated. I don't think Rodgers is going to win back-to-back with the mess that they have in Green Bay right now. I think Mahomes is going to win MVP this season, and he's going to have a phenomenal year for Kansas City. He's talking about going 17-0. That shows you how motivated he is about the regular season this year.
Absolutely. Mahomes is a pretty easy pick. I'm trying to wonder if maybe there's some dark horse that might come through. I could look at somebody like Dak Prescott as potentially being an option, somebody who has part of the nerve in terms of coming back from an injury last year. He has all the weapons around him on offense. And perhaps just as importantly, he plays for America's team. What's going to look better than Dak Prescott playing a full 17 games over the course of the season with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup at receiver. You've got Zeke Elliott as running back. They might be scaling back his load a little bit. And with a defense that isn't quite outstanding, Dak is going to have to throw the ball a lot to keep Dallas in games. So I think part of that narrative, I agree, Mahomes is definitely more likely to win, but also keep an eye out on Dak Prescott, who's got that comeback player of the year and also has the just raw ability, raw weapons around him to also be a dangerous threat for MVP. So just to kind of vary the discussion up a little bit to talk about a dark horse.
Okay. Who do you have, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking along the same lines. I mean, Dak, his offensive line's a little banged up or COVID-related stuff, whatever. So, I see Dak obviously having a very good season. We'll see how the Rams do. Does Matthew Stafford decide to throw for a bunch of yards and enter that MVP conversation? We'll see.
First off, I don't think Dak Prescott's going to get it because I don't think Dallas is going to win enough games. I'm not sure that he's going to stay healthy enough. Matthew Stafford is an intriguing one because the Rams are going to be very good this season. They have the best defense, and I was sort of looking back on the show and we listed our top 10 quarterbacks, and I'm thinking maybe I should have had him in my top 10. But if we're talking dark horses, I think someone that you got to look at, I think, is Derrick Henry at running back. I think he's going to have a big season. I think that division with Indianapolis, I think, looks like it's going to be down. I think Tennessee might have a really, really big season. He would be a dark horse for me. Also, if we're looking at dark horse quarterbacks, I think Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, two other guys to throw in the mix. I know Wilson got a lot of MVP hype early last season. He hasn't won the MVP. If he has a big season, he has a chance. But I like Mahomes. I know I'm boring, but that's who I like, and you guys know that.
Yeah, well, kind of talking a little bit about boring, and this is going to be a little bit of a call forward to when we talk a bit of college football and how we kind of divvied up our content last week, and you and I. Maybe sometimes boring is the best way to go. The tried and true is the best way to go. I mean, obviously, Mahomes is he's unparalleled. We're going to be seeing this season something that we rarely, if ever, have seen. I mean, we had Mike McCarthy coaching Aaron Rodgers for a number of years in Green Bay, but Rodgers never had the level of weapons that Mahomes has had. The amount of continuity in coaching staff and talent level is going to be really, really intriguing and exciting to see, to be sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, how about the NFC North? It's an intriguing division. The Bengals, Browns, Steelers, Ravens. Is it a three-headed race? What do you think, Common?
Yeah, AFC North. I know what you meant, though. I think you said NFC.
AFC, yeah.
Been there, done that. This is, I think, is the most intriguing division. I think, obviously, the NFC West also is really good. But I think this is one of those divisions where all three teams can win it. I think you look at Pittsburgh last year, won it at 12-4, but they lost 5 of their last 6 games, counting the playoffs. The Browns and Ravens were both 11-5. So I think all three of these teams have the ability to win it. In a 17-game season, obviously, whoever stays healthy is going to be the most important. I am going to surprise you guys here, though. I'm going to pick the Steelers to finish third. I think Ben Roethlisberger has shown some regression. We saw late in last season as a quarterback. And I think the fact that they don't have any semblance of a running game and offensive line is really, really scary if you think about it. I mean, I know Ben's a Hall of Famer, but you've got an aging quarterback without an offensive line and a running back. I mean, he has decent receivers, but not a lot of help for Mr. Ben Roethlisberger. As far as Cleveland and Baltimore, I think it's really, really close. I mean, I want to pick Cleveland because I think the Browns winning the division would be really good and really fun. But I'm going to surprise you guys. I'm going to pick Baltimore. I know you guys know that I'm the Lamar Jackson hater, and I know the fact that Baltimore can't pass the ball isn't going to win for them in the playoffs. But in the regular season, their running game has been hard to stop. And this comes down to the fact that Baltimore plays amazing defense and they run the ball great. Cleveland runs the ball great. They're okay at passing and they're terrible at defense. Baltimore last season, second in defense in points per game. Cleveland 21st. So, and that was included like that one game where they were in that rainy game, like in the snow where they only allowed like 10 points or something. So you take that game out, they'd be even lower. I do like that they have Baker Mayfield and how well he played. Odell Beckham Jr. coming back is going to give them some competition. I hope Cleveland gets it done. They have the most balanced attack in terms of passing and running in the division. But I think Baltimore's defense is incredible. The best in the AFC. I know Pittsburgh is probably right behind them, but Cleveland's defense is really what's holding them back. I think they're going to make the playoffs, but I would probably say they just miss out on that division title.
Yeah, I like the Ravens as well for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. You know, the defense is primary among them, and also former MVP Lamar Jackson. Let's not discount what he brings to the field. I think he still has another level that he needs to prove he can get to as a more consistent passer. We saw a little bit of a lack of creativity also in their offensive scheme last season. Coordinator. Part of that's limited by the weapons. You know, they have a decent tight end in Mark Andrews, but wide receiver has been a position that's been difficult for them to shore up. They have Sammy Watkins. Tell me the last time that he was healthy and a completely impactful player. Marquise Brown has proven to not be a consistent wide receiver. So can those guys step up, and can Baltimore actually try to scheme a little bit better in the passing game to make themselves more dynamic? It's fantastic when you have an athlete as gifted as Lamar Jackson to be that difference maker. That's going to be the biggest key, along with health, of course, for the Ravens this season. I also think, you know, Steelers finishing in third place is most likely. Big Ben has shown some regression, as you mentioned, bad offensive line. And, you know, we saw the Steelers start out really, really strong last season and kind of fade toward the end. I wonder if we're going to be seeing something similar where that trend actually continues into this year. Browns are the same. The Browns are on the rise. They're on the way up. I think that they're a dangerous team to make it into the playoffs this season. AFC is stacked, though, so I don't know how easy that road's going to be. But give me Baltimore coming out.
Tom? Yeah, you were breaking up there a little bit, but I did hear you pick Baltimore.
Yes, he was. I agree. I think Baltimore is the pick, and you know it'll be somewhat close with the Browns. don't discount the Bengals. I don't think they'll be totally bad this season.
So you're on the Joe Burrow hype train.
Well, sure.
I think the last time the Bengals won a playoff game was like 1991. But of course, we had the Browns and Bills setting barriers last season. So why not the Bengals? But I will.
Yeah, you never know.
I'll pick them to finish fourth. I actually think they're just in such a tough division. Those are really, really good football teams. Man, we should have done the NFC West. I guess we're agreeing. I just thought we'd all make the same pick in the NFC West. I thought we might have a little different variance here, but I guess not. Well, oh well.
We'll have some variance later on in the show. Drew, where are we going next?
Now we'll go to the AFC South. What are you thinking? Is this I'm guessing the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's a two-horse race in this one. The Jaguars and Texans are horrendous football teams. They're playing each other this week, what should be called like the toilet bowl. But I might still pick that at locks of the week, so stay tuned for that. But as far as those two, I mean, it's got to be the Titans. I know last season they both went 11-5, but Phillip Rivers is retired for Indianapolis, and they've got a lot of quarterback issues. Carson Wentz, yes, maybe he could be good, but he's had a lot of injuries. He's had COVID issues. T.Y. Hilton is supposed to be out the first few weeks of the season. So a new quarterback and a new offense without his top receiver doesn't bode well for Indianapolis. And by the way, their schedule is really tough early on. They got the Seahawks, Rams, at the Titans, at the Dolphins, at the Ravens. The first 5 games, they play 4 playoff teams and 5 teams with winning records. I know last season, a lot of expectations for the Texans. They got off to that cold start. They never recovered. I do think Indianapolis is going to win more than 4 to 5 games, but I think this is a runaway train for Tennessee, who just added Julio Jones at receiver to go along with A.J. Brown, of course, and then the beast Derrick Henry in the backfield. That's why I'm talking about Henry as a possible MVP candidate, because I think that Titans division sets up pretty easy for them. I think they have the potential to go 6-0 in the division. They do that, and they could have, like a 14-3 season. And I say 14-3 because we've got 17 games this year.
I'm realizing my lighting situation isn't optimal. I'll fix that after I pick the division winner, which is going to be the Tennessee Titans, as much as I am a fan of the Indianapolis Colts, and might be talking about them a little bit later on in the show as well. I just cannot trust their quarterback situation right now with Carson Wentz missing time for injury and also not being vaccinated. That's something that we have not talked about with any of these teams yet. With the stringent COVID protocols that are in place, if you're vaccinated, it's a lot easier and you're a lot more readily available on game day. If you are an unvaccinated player, as we've seen with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, Carson Wentz now in Indianapolis, I think Lamar Jackson had a COVID scare as well. That's going to be something that's going to have a big impact on as well, is just availability, the greatest ability of them all from whatever. But I think that the Titans are loaded enough on offense to make up for a pretty pedestrian, if not paltry, defense, and that a well-rounded Colts team is going to give them a challenge in a couple of games, but I don't think ultimately.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I also agree. I mean, you have to go. Who do you have to go with here? You have to go with the Titans, right? I mean, I think they're the best team in that division, and we'll see how the Colts do. But I don't have too much faith in them. They're got some injuries and other related things like that. So definitely taking the Titans.
Yeah, we got a Zoom injury here. Tom Castleman, he's been coming in and out of the show, and I think he just lost his computer. Now he's back. We see him. We've got a Zoom injury, Tom. Your connection today is not very good.
No, I was here. I just turned off. I didn't want people to see me futzing around with the lights. So.
Okay. Well,
no, we're good.
You went in and out several times today, so I was a little worried about the internet connection.
That's no bueno.
That's how we do it in 2021. Down. Zoom shows, doing live shows, and things happen like that. But nonetheless, we're all on the same page here. Do we think? I mean, I guess we'll get to wildcard picks later, though. Are you guys on the same page with me that the Colts aren't going to be a playoff team, or do you still think they could be a playoff team, Tom?
It's
Like as
close,
a wild
but
card?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to cheer
No?
for it, but I don't think so. The AFC's too stacked.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're a playoff team either.
Well, moving on, Drew. What do we got next?
AFC West.
AFC West. So that's
Who do
the
you
East.
have? The Chiefs.
I think I had the East first, but we'll do the West.
Oh, sure.
Obviously, the Chiefs are the team to beat here. They've won this division 5 straight years. They've been in 2 straight Super Bowls. I do think this is an intriguing division just because I look at teams like the Chargers and Raiders. I think there's a lot of talent there and a lot of inconsistency, bad luck, and unclutch play from those teams. I think if the Chargers with Justin Herbert, and obviously I think Derek Carr with Oakland, I know we did top 10 QBs. No one mentioned him. If he plays up to his ability, those are 2 teams that have a chance to fight for a wild card spot. But Kansas City owns this division. I'll also look for Denver to improve, I think, because they've got several young receivers. So there's a chance we get a wild card team out of this division. I'm not picking it. I'm picking the Chiefs to win the division and no wild card teams. But I think this division could potentially be a little bit better than people think.
Do you somebody had Justin Herbert on the top 10? He was 6 on my list.
Yeah, he was 6 on your list. I had him in there like honorable mention. But yeah.
Oh, gotcha. No, I think the Chiefs are the
I meant Derek
team.
Carr. No one had Derek Carr.
Oh, Derek Carr. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm having some internet issues. So, okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
the Chiefs are the easy pick coming out of the West. The Broncos look like the best last place team from last year, to check out standings where you have the worst to first team. If they were in any other division than one with Kansas City, they would be my pick for that. As it stands, I think this is a year where we're not going to have that phenomenon. But Vic Fangio has that team humming pretty nicely, I think, with their defense and balance on offense. But give me the Chiefs. They're the easy pick for a reason. They're the deepest, most talented team that there is playing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think the Chiefs will win the division. You never know. The Chargers could make the playoffs. Raiders could be good. It could be, decent competitively a race for second.
Yeah. Wow. A lot of chalk here. We're going chalk. AFC East. I might have a surprise for the wild cards, and that team might come out of the AFC East. As far as the AFC East, I think the Bills were in the AFC title game last year. They took that next step. They conquered the Patriots. They went 6-0 in the division. They only had 4 losses last year, 2 of them to the Chiefs. This is counting the playoffs. A Hail Mary loss to the Cardinals and an away loss at a good Tennessee team. So I think the Bills are the team to beat. I know it's just a preseason, but I watched them against the Bears with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, not even Josh Allen. And I know it's the Bears, but man, that Bills first team offense looked really good with the backup quarterback. But I think we're going to get a wild card team out of this division, and it's going to be really close between the Dolphins and Patriots. I think the Dolphins last season were just a game away from the playoffs themselves, and they've got a phenomenal defense where they turn teams over at will, and they've got Tua, who I think is going to be better this season. I know he was coming off an injury. It was a COVID year. He didn't have the same training camp. I know he doesn't have very good targets there, but I think Tua should take a step in year 2. And then obviously the Patriots, they had the most guys opt out of COVID last season, and they got a lot of guys back on defense. They got Nelson Aguilar at receiver, Hunter Henry at tight end. They picked up some weapons, and I actually agree with Bill Belichick. I think Cam Newton is not as good as Mac Jones. Mac Jones shined in the preseason. Pat's winning every preseason game. I know it's the preseason, but he looked really, really good, and I think he gives them a better chance in that passing game than an injured Cam Newton. So I do think, by the way, Cam Newton is still better than a few starters in the NFL, but not better than Mac Jones, who I think is going to have a very strong season. He's not going to be the next Tom Brady, but we saw it work with a rookie QB for Bill Belichick in the past. So I think New England's going to get a close second in the division, and I think the Patriots might be back in the playoffs this year. Ugh.
Yeah, I certainly have the Patriots back in the playoffs this year, as I actually have them winning the AFC East. I think
Ooh,
that Buffalo had a great season last year, but something to keep in mind that I'm not 100% sold on yet is Josh Allen, quite frankly. If you look at his completion percentage numbers in college, junior college, high school, at no point in time was he above 60% for an entire season. Last year was an anomaly. Now, it could be that things are clicking for him, that he is a superstar, that he is breaking through and just breaking every mold that there is with his legs and with his arm. Or it could be that he is due for some bit of regression, and the Buffalo Bills don't quite have the running game with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary in place to kind of offset any sort of regression on that end. As you mentioned, Common, the Patriots have the most players coming back that sat out from COVID last season, or rather that opted out of the season, to be clear. And Bill Belichick is a fantastic coach. If you look at the talent that he had around him and they were still able to win 7 games, that's actually not bad at all. I think that with Mac Jones, he's back to having your more archetypical pocket passer where Cam Newton, not that wasn't his strength, basically. Bill Belichick had a whole different system in place for his quarterback last year. I think this year, they've got the talent to compete with just about anybody in that division, and it's not going to be the runaway that it used to be in the Tom Brady years. But I see the Patriots edging out the Bills to win the division and reclaim their seat at top of the AFC East.
wow. Drew, who do you got in that division?
Wow. I mean, I was going to take the Bills to win the division, and then runner up. I mean, I kind of want to go the Dolphins. I'm not sure the Patriots will be that good this year. I think Tua's going to have a good season. Myles Gaskin back there as well. So, give me a look at the Dolphins.
I'll tell you this, Tom Castleman. You know how I'm the Lamar Jackson hater? I'm going to label you the Josh Allen hater from now on, just because
That's fine.
Drew, you weren't on the show last couple weeks, but Tom's been harping on Josh Allen and that completion percentage. By the way, he was 4th in the NFL last year in that statistic, and he's just a really, really good player. I know he struggled with accuracy in the past, but that's what happens when you're a young player. He showed his improvements. He showed what he can do when he has Stephon Diggs, a legitimate wide receiver. I don't know that he's going to complete 67% of his passes this year, but he's going to be much closer to 67 than 57. I'll tell you that much. So I look for Josh Allen. Talk about sleeper MVPs. By the way, last season, technically he finished 2nd in the MVP voting. I think Mahomes was 3rd. Rodgers got almost every vote. But I think Allen is really, really good. Buffalo, though, again, the thing that scares me about every team is we don't really have that many complete teams in the NFL. Maybe the Buccaneers are the one. I think the Chiefs are close. Their defense has gotten better, but still isn't necessarily incredible. I think in the AFC, I mean, you look at the Bills, they've got the offense, some question marks about the defense in the running game. And you've got the Steelers can't run the ball. The Ravens can't pass the ball. The Browns can't play defense. The Titans can't play defense. I mean, the AFC is pretty wide open. I mean, we've all got the Ravens winning the division. We've got the Titans winning the division, the Chiefs winning the division. And then Tom has New England. Drew and I have Buffalo. What are the wild card teams? It's 2 wild cards this year again, right? No COVID, 3 wild cards.
Exactly, yeah. My wild cards are going to be the Buffalo Bills, and it's close, but give me the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I'll take the Browns and the Dolphins.
So we've all got the Browns as a wild card. I've got the Patriots. So again, that AFC East is kind of intriguing. What I like about this is I like the Browns because they have a really good running game and a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield. And I think Odell Beckham, if he's even close to what he was, is a big boost for them. The second wild card is interesting. I know the Dolphins with that defense and what should be an improving QB are in the mix. I think Pittsburgh, we've kind of counted them out, but don't count out Pittsburgh. They haven't had a losing season in so long. And the Colts, if Carson Wentz does have a rejuvenation, they've got the talent as well. I like New England and the Browns because, like we said, New England has a great defense. They've got a great coach. They've got a lot of guys back, and they've got Nelson Aguilar. Hunter Henry, a few new targets. So I like New England to make it into the playoffs. But the AFC is going to be fun. I think Kansas City's top dog, but after Kansas City, 2 through about 8, as we saw last year, is pretty even. I guess Buffalo maybe is a little bit above the rest, but I guess Tom Castleman doesn't even think they're the best in the division. So who knows?
No, I think there might be some statistical regression to the mean.
Okay.
Crazy. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I guess we'll move on to the NFC. Yeah.
NFC West. We should have just started with the NFC. I was
That's all right.
debating what to start with. We should have started with the NFC West, but whatever.
Who do you have winning the NFC West?
Yeah, I think this is the only division in football where you can legitimately say that all 4 teams have a chance. I know we have the 49ers. Were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and then had a lot of injuries last season, didn't make the playoffs. I think they finished in the cellar in the division, but again, because of injuries. Then you have the Cardinals, who are an upstart young team. A lot of excitement around Kyler Murray. He was playing great, and all of a sudden down the stretch, they choked. They stunk it up at the end. They finished 8-8 on the season. And then, of course, we have the Seahawks, who won the division last year and have been really the top dog consistently in this division for the last 6 to 7 years. And then we've got the Rams, a playoff team from last year with the top defense in the NFL. And guess what? They got themselves a quarterback finally with Matthew Stafford. So I think the Cardinals, to me, are going to get last here. I just don't trust them. There's just something about them that rubs me wrong. I was really high on Kyler Murray at one point last year, and I've backpedaled big time. And he didn't look very good in the preseason. I know it's preseason, but I watched the Cardinals and Chiefs game, and they did not look good. I just don't trust them. There's just something about them that I don't trust. The other 3, I think, are pretty close. I still don't love the 49ers offense. I know, Tom, you talk about regression to the mean. I mean, obviously injuries were a part of it, but I think San Francisco really overachieved 2 years ago. And no matter who they started quarterback, I just don't love, the weapons that the quarterback has. I know George Kittle is great, but I question the receivers and what they have there. And then Seattle, I think, has Russell Wilson, who's the best player. Well, actually, let me change that. Second best player in the division. I forgot about one Aaron Donald, but the best offensive player, the best quarterback in this division, top 5 QB in the NFL. He's really clutch. Seattle's very good at home. They're one of those teams that always finds ways to win. But I'm going to take the Rams. I know, Tom, you're going to take the Rams. I like Matthew Stafford. I think he's never been in a position where he can actually rely on a defense. He can do that in LA, and I think Sean McVay is a great offensive mind. I think he's smiling that he has Matthew Stafford, finally an above-average quarterback when Jared Goff was not. He was holding back the Rams. He's a mediocre quarterback, so I like the Rams to win this division with the great defense, and Matthew Stafford might get himself a playoff win finally. Amazing what happens when you leave the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I think Matt Stafford's probably smiling that he has a coach like Sean McVay who's going to be able to scheme things the way that he does to get an underrated receiving core. Nobody's standing with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods as your primary targets, but definitely very solid receivers. I think a good balanced offense that just needed somebody who could, just take the keys, turn the ignition, and that's what Matthew Stafford can do. And he's still got enough life in his arm to put some zip on the ball as well. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they are some highlight players on this defense. So give me the Rams to win the division out of the NFC West.
Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll take the Rams as well to win that division. It's a tough division. I think it's going to be very competitive, but I'll give me the Rams.
This is why we didn't start with the NFC West. I knew we were all going to pick the Rams. I could just pick our picks. I guess I should have known you guys would take the Ravens. Maybe I'll just pick the Browns. You know what? Let's change it. Let's have some fun. I'll take the Browns to win the division just to be different, because I think we're agreeing way, way too much on this show. And I'm sure we'll probably agree about the next division as well.
Yeah, next division, NFC North. What do you think, Common? Bears?
No. This might be the worst division in football. I think the Lions are a horrific team. I think Losing Matthew Stafford makes them even more horrific. They've got a new coach. I just don't get a good feeling about him from what I've seen and I've heard. I can't even remember his name right now. Henderson, I think. I don't know. What's the new
coach
coach's
for the
name?
Lions, Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell, that's it. I just
Yeah,
didn't like.
You're going to
his
knock
press
his team
conference.
down, and on the way up, he's going to bite off a kneecap, and then knock him down
Yeah.
again, bite off another kneecap, and
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of
Well,
knocking down in Detroit.
a lot of knocking down in Detroit. Minnesota, I think, really is the one team that could possibly make a run, but their defense really, really regressed last season. I know, obviously, losing Stephon Diggs also hurt their offense. And then the Bears have offensive line issues, and they're going to start Andy Dalton at quarterback. I think that's just bringing them bad karma. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and I just don't like what this team has to offer. Speaking of regression, they lost a couple guys on defense too, and their defense has been regressing the last few years. They're very much like Seattle, by the way. The reason why I'm picking the Rams over Seattle is because Seattle's defense has regressed, Seattle's running game has regressed, and so have the Bears. You used to think of like Seattle, Chicago, Pittsburgh, 3 teams, run the ball, play good defense. Well, Pittsburgh still plays good defense, but all 3 teams don't run the ball anymore, and all 3 teams don't play good defense anymore. So I am going to stick with the Packers to win. I think they're the only team that was over 500 last year. I think they'll be the only team that's over 500 in the division this year. I think if things go well for Chicago or Minnesota, 7 to 8 wins. But Green Bay is obviously the top dog. Great quarterback, great receiver, great running back. They're the team to beat. No brainer. I don't think we'll be having a wild card team come out of this division.
No, I don't think that we will either. And quite frankly, I'm not even that excited about picking the Packers to win the division either, simply because, they were in the NFC title game last year. And what have they done to get better heading into this season? If anything, you could say that they've treaded water at best, maybe gotten a little bit worse with some losses on the offensive line due to free agency, I believe. So, basically it's picking the Packers because there's no confidence in anybody else to really step up and win this division. So I think there's going to be a lot of even divisional records as, the Lions, Bears, Vikings, all probably, take one at home, lose one on the road type of thing. And then the Packers will be the ones that have the better divisional record, and that's what's going to be the difference. We'll see what happens with the rest of the team with Aaron Rodgers having missed all of camp. That's not really exciting heading into the season, but I think with Matt LaFleur, he's a good enough coach. They have good enough weapons, and of course they have Aaron Rodgers, the reigning MVP. They'll do just fine to win the division. I don't know how much farther they're going to go than that.
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to win the division with no problems. NFC East, is that where we're at?
I think we had the South down, but we can go with
South?
whatever.
We'll go the South, sure. What do you think, Common? Is it a Bucks win again?
Well, Bucks didn't win the division last year.
Who knows?
They might win it this year. They've got all 22 starters back from their Super Bowl team. It's very rare that you have all the starters returning from a team that won the Super Bowl. Hats off to that organization and what they did to keep all those players there. I think they're the team to beat. Obviously, Drew Brees no longer being in New Orleans is a tough loss, but I think that it's going to be a very competitive division. I think that the Saints are definitely going to make the playoffs. I think they have a shot. I'm going to pick Tampa just because I think Tom Brady is better than Jameis Winston. But I think that New Orleans has a really good running back. They've got a really good defense. And I think Jameis Winston under Sean Payton is going to play better. I think we've seen him in this preseason. We've seen Jameis Winston absolutely shine, delivering perfect passes. And if he doesn't turn the ball over, he actually, in some ways, is an upgrade. It's weird to say that, but Brees was at the end of his career. He couldn't push the ball down the field. Jameis offers him the ability to push the ball down the field. I don't think that he'll make the Pro Bowl, or if they're still doing that. But I think Jameis is going to have a career season this season. Maybe not a career high in pass yards, but I think maybe a career low in INTs, which is a career year for him. So I think this is going to be a division that goes down to the last week of the season. I'm going to pick Tampa Bay again because I think they have a more proven team. We don't have question marks about them like we do with the aforementioned Jameis Winston. But I like New Orleans to make the playoffs. I like it to be a close division, and I like the Panthers and Falcons to do really, really bad.
Well,
Wow.
I do have a question about Tampa Bay, and I'm picking them to win the division. I think that they're a pretty clear-cut favorite, but is this the year that Tom Brady's done? It's the same question that I've had basically heading into every NFL season for the past 7 years. Is this the year that Tom Brady finally doesn't look like the quarterback we've always known him to be? We saw that with Drew Brees in the last, year and a half. Really, we might be seeing that with Ben Roethlisberger now. We certainly have seen it with other quarterbacks before, where you can tell when there is just a decline physically. And while mentally they're still there, they're still sharp, they still know exactly what they're looking at and looking for. All of a sudden, you can't run out routes because the quarterback doesn't have the arm strength to put the ball right on the sideline between the defender and the margin at the end. So I think that I'll take Tampa Bay, as I'm going to like to be calling them this year. I think they have good balance with running backs and at the wide receiver position and everywhere, basically. Like, what's their real weakness? So even if there is a decline in Tom Brady's talent level or is just straight up physical ability, they still have enough around him to win a division over 17 games.
Yeah, I would say this. I think I said this stat on the show last week. I think it was that the statistic. I can't talk. Was that the Bucks were second in down the field passes over 20 yards last season. I think Brady still has the arm. I think it's going to be a weird thing when you ask that question because we saw this with Peyton Manning. It kind of came out of nowhere. Like, is it going to come out of nowhere for Tom Brady until he shows that he's slowing down? I'm going to say that this is not the year, but we'll see. Eventually, it'll happen.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I'll also take the Bucks in this division. And then how about in the NFC East, guys? You thinking Cowboys?
Yeah, this is a really, really bad division. I think last season Washington won it with 7 games. I think Dallas is the obvious pick if Dak Prescott stays healthy. You look at the quarterbacks on the other teams. You look at Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, these are bottom tier guys. You can honestly make a case for Jones and Hurts being bottom 5 starting QBs in the NFL. And Fitzpatrick has been a good journeyman, but he's sort of always been like a good backup or lower tier starter. I think Dak Prescott has some good targets. He has Amari Cooper. He has Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield. CeeDee Lamb has shown a lot of promise at wide receiver. And the Cowboys defense actually played better down the stretch last season. They were horrific to start the season, but they improved down the stretch. This comes down to the fact that Dallas has the most talent on offense, but they're not great on defense. I think the Giants in Washington are good on defense, but they don't have any offense. So I think Dallas has the best quarterback, though, the most talent. If Dak Prescott stays healthy, Dallas will win. But if he doesn't, I had to look up who their backup quarterback is. I think it's Cooper Rush. He's only thrown 3 career passes in his career, only 1 completion. So if Dak Prescott goes down, Dallas is in big trouble.
Would I be able to say for this division, a football team will win? Would we count that as meaning anything whatsoever for the division? I like the Cowboys as well, though I won't discount Washington out of hand. Ryan Fitzpatrick has proven that he's consistently inconsistent. He's capable of Fitz magic sometimes, and he's also capable of looking like somebody who should not be starting in an NFL game. But you look at the weapons around him, you've got Antonio Gibson, who might be ready to take the next step as a great running back in this league, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas at tight end, McLaurin being a receiver, of course. Ron Rivera also, let's talk a little bit about coaching as well. I'd say he's probably... he's definitely, I think, the best coach in the division. He has Super Bowl experience. He's been a fantastic coach everywhere that he's gone. And then you look at the defense, you got a star in Chase Young. I actually might be talking myself into the Washington football team being my pick to come out of the division, but I'm going to stick with the Cowboys because I think Jerry Jones is just slightly less of an egregious individual than Daniel Snyder, and I wish no success for that man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's what's really interesting. Like, if you think about it, that like Ron Rivera is like one of the ultimate good guys, and Daniel Snyder and the rest of the Washington organization is sort of like one of like the most like iffy organizations. And it was like Alex Smith also is a good guy. So it's like last year you want to cheer for Washington because of Alex Smith and Ron Rivera, but you want to cheer against them because of Daniel Snyder and all the stuff that they've done off the field. So I don't know. I mean, I think Washington has a really good defense. I don't think they have a good enough running attack personally. So we'll see. And Fitzmagic, by the way, you know who Fitzmagic is like? You know who's like a younger version of Fitzmagic? Jameis Winston. They are like the same because there's sometimes when you watch them play, they look really, really good. Other times, really, really bad. I think Jameis has a little bit higher ceiling, probably, a little bit better player overall, but they're kind of similar. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick is like a older, slightly lesser version of Jameis Winston, I think. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens there. How about the NFC wildcards, guys?
Yeah, for the wild cards, I've got the Saints. Speaking of famous Jameis, they had one of the best defenses in the league last season. They've got a great running back in Alvin Kamara. Also, Latavius Murray, a very solid number 2. They had some injuries at wide receiver last season. Look for them to be a little bit more healthy there as well. I think the Saints have what it takes to get the wild card. I know Drew Brees is a journeyman quarterback, but Taysom Hill went 3-1 as a starter last year. And the fact that Jameis Winston beat out Taysom Hill tells you that they're decent. They don't need a great quarterback to win. They can rely on their running game. They can rely on their defense. As far as making a wild card spot, I feel pretty safe in saying New Orleans does that. I think they're going to beat up on the Falcons and Panthers, probably go 4-0 in those divisional games. That should help them a lot. And I think they've done really well against Tampa Bay last season, not in the playoffs, but in the regular season, they beat them both times. So there's something about that matchup to keep in mind for. So I definitely have the Saints in. The second wild card is a little bit tougher for me, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think Seattle pretty much always makes the playoffs. They're a very clutch team. Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think Seattle's going to find a way to make the playoffs. They look very different. They don't have that beastly defense. They don't have that beastly running back, but they've got a really good quarterback who has 2 really good receivers in Metcalf and Lockett. So I think Seattle does just enough to get a wild card. So I think what's crazy is we've got a pretty similar picks to last season. So some of these are not going to work out. I mean, we went very chalkish. There's going to be someone who makes the playoffs that didn't make it last year. I want to say every team in the NFC that I picked at least, made the playoffs last season. And I think also every team in the AFC but New England. So who would be a team? Who do you guys have as the wild cards? And who would be maybe a surprise team for you guys that you think could possibly sneak in?
Well, both of mine are coming out of the West. So I've got the Seahawks like you do, Common, and then I also have the 49ers. I didn't really take into account the divisional scheduling factor, which I think does give New Orleans a better odds at making the playoffs as that other wild card spot. But I like the 49ers better as an overall team. And they're a team that had a lot of injuries last year, didn't make the playoffs. So, I mean, I've got New England who didn't make the playoffs, and on the AFC side, give me the 49ers. And I guess the Cowboys, technically. I mean, they're another team that weren't in the playoffs that we all, I think, have going in there. So Cowboys and 49ers as non-playoff teams that are going to be making it in the AFC or NFC this year.
Yeah, NFC wildcards, I will take the Cardinals and the Saints.
Yeah, I had that written down on my notes, Tom. You kind of like stole it for me, proved my point for me, proving against you the point that division in the NFC West is so tough that it's going to be hard to get a second wild card, to get 2 wild cards out of there, because I probably agree with you that the 49ers, might be, a playoff level worthy team. But I think it's just too hard in that division. So I like the Saints making it. But who do we have in the NFC, AFC championship games, Super Bowls? I mean, who are the top dogs in each conference?
Well, the team
Bills, Rams for me.
Bills, Rams for comment. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, Rams. I'm actually going to go. Can I just go ahead and throw out what the Super Bowl pick is for me? I'm going to go ahead and say the Rams over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in February.
I knew you were going to pick that. For the record, I've got a repeat of last season. I've got the Chiefs and Bucks. I think I think the Chiefs are flat out the best team in the NFL. I think they had an off game in the Super Bowl last season. I think they had some offensive line injuries. They're going to get a few offensive linemen healthy this season. It's going to go a long way towards helping the Chiefs. And I think the AFC title game, I think it might be Chiefs Titans. I think the Titans are going to have a big season this season. I think they're probably going to get the 2 seed in the AFC and do well in the playoffs. And in the NFC, I like Tampa Bay, and I also like the Rams. But I'm going to pick Tampa. I know it's very unlikely we have the same Super Bowl, but I just look at what 2 teams do I think are the 2 best teams? And I think it's Kansas City and Tampa Bay. It probably won't happen, but I feel more safe picking Tampa Bay than I do the Rams, just because Matthew Stafford is a massive improvement, but they still don't have a great running game. They don't have a great receivers. I think the running back got hurt also. So I think he's definitely better than Jared Goff. But there are some question marks about that offense in LA. I was about to say St. Louis and I caught myself, but I think it's going to be close. I think it's very wide open in both conferences. I feel the most safe in the Chiefs just because I think they have something to prove. I think there was just something off with the Chiefs last season. It's like their focus was off. Something wasn't right. They played a few closer games than they should have. And I know some of that was garbage time scores by the opposition at the last minute. But I think Kansas City is going to regroup and they're going to be really, really good this season. They'll be really motivated. And it's almost sort of makes me feel better in picking them this season, because had they won last season, we would have been talking about a three-peat, and that doesn't happen in the NFL. So the fact that Kansas City didn't win last year, the fact that Mahomes didn't win MVP last year, makes me feel better about picking the Chiefs to make and win the Super Bowl. And I think a second Mahomes Brady Super Bowl would be epic. Well, we're talking about legacies and the greatest quarterback of all time. And it would be horrific if Tampa Bay won, because you guys know where I stand on Mahomes being the best ever. That would be really, really bad for me. And ironically, Mahomes, if you look at Mahomes' statistics in playoff games that are not the Super Bowl, he is the greatest playoff quarterback of all time, far and away. Then the Super Bowl, he actually hasn't played as good as the other playoff games. But again, some of that last season was drops in offensive line play.
So you're saying that Patrick Mahomes is not clutch?
Oh, he's clutch. He's clutch. I just think he could play a little bit better in the Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay, then. Well, I've got who do I have? Rams, Bills, Rams winning the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Sure.
So we got 2 Rams picks here on the show.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we move on to college?
Yeah, I just can't believe
I can't wait.
How are you guys so confident in the Rams? What is it about the Rams that you love so much?
I love Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, man.
Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. They have really good talent on both sides of the ball. I think they have enough star power to just kind of chug on through the NFC. And then, McVay's a really good coach. I
figure we'll all be wrong. I figure, it's going to be
too.
Ravens, Packers in the Super Bowl.
I saw a thing where a dog put things in a bowl and was shooting at things, and the dog picked the Super Bowl, and the dog picked the 2 teams I least want to make it, legitimate contenders. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say. But obviously in the AFC, I'm the Ravens hater, so I don't want that. And then the NFC, it's hard to say between Tampa Bay and Green Bay who I dislike the most. So I caught myself. But the dog picked Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl over Baltimore, and I was like, it would. It would literally pick the worst possible option, except for maybe the Packers. So we'll see if the dog is right.
Well, now I'm just going to cheer for that.
Oh, I mean, the dog, like, I don't know if you guys watch those like animal picks where the animals pick the Super Bowl. I think they tend to do better than most sports analysts. So, I mean, this has been the year of the upsets. We've had a lot of upsets this season across all sports. It remains to be seen if we kind of get back to a more status quo situation with training camps and fans back in the seats. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think I just like the Chiefs. There's just something about their team and Mahomes and just how fired up they're going to be. I think they're going to be out to prove to the world that we are still the best team. And LA, I don't know. It's just, again, something rubs me wrong about LA. They're sort of like the Browns. I mean, I'd say LA has a chance. I think certainly a better chance than a lot of these other teams. But I just don't see it. I don't see them winning the Super Bowl. We'll see.
Well, that's fair.
See. Moving on to college, Drew.
Sure, yeah. What do you think? Oklahoma Tulane turned out to be a great game. Oklahoma, you think they're in trouble, Common, after the near loss?
Yes and no. I think they're in trouble if we're talking about them being a legitimate national championship contender. They're in huge trouble. As far as making the playoff, I don't necessarily think they're in trouble because the Big 12 is very, very weak. I think we have to factor in that Iowa State also barely won their week 1 game. I do think that obviously week 1, it's different. I think Oklahoma played pretty good on offense minus Spencer Rattler's turnovers. And that's one thing that I think Spencer Rattler is an overrated quarterback. It looked like he fixed the turnovers late last season, but I don't know if he did because he just threw 2 interceptions against Tulane. But as far as Oklahoma's defense, not a good look for them, but I think they're going to get better. I think in camp, you don't go all out as far as tackling. So week 1 is harder on the defenses than the offenses because all of a sudden you have to tackle. So I think in that week Big 12, which Tom and I talked about last week, Oklahoma's schedule is really good. They play Iowa State at home in Norman, Oklahoma. So I think they're going to still make the playoff, but I think they might get that 3 to 4 seed, and they might be blown out big time because that defense is not going to cut it. You give up 35 points against Tulane. What do you think is going to happen when you play Alabama? You might double that if Alabama wanted to, So I think Oklahoma is in big trouble as far as, are they the number 2 team in the country? Are they the number 1 team in the country like Tom had last week? He had them winning it all. I think I had Clemson winning it all. So we both, maybe we're overreacting, but I think both of our picks almost look like out the window after week 1.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned about Oklahoma for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, Common, in terms of this was their first game. They haven't been going full on in practice the entire preseason training camp. So looking at their schedule, it's still pretty soft until they play Texas on October 9th. So that they have plenty of time to iron out any wrinkles that they need to get into full-on playing shape. And I think they'll be just fine to steamroll through the rest of the season. I mean, look at what happened to them last year. They had a couple hiccups early on, and then they were just a dominant team towards the finish. Granted, against Florida Gators team that had a lot of its starters skip out on the bowl game because they were going pro. But even before then, Oklahoma looked really, really good. So I'm not worried about the Sooners right now, given their close game against Tulane. We saw a lot of teams that were much higher ranked teams that were much bigger favorites or large favorites over the teams that they were playing, rather, have closer games than expected. So I'm not overly concerned just yet.
Yeah, I'm not, I wouldn't be that concerned. It's just one game. I don't think there's the need to overreact after one game. So we'll definitely see what happens in the coming weeks. So
I am concerned about Clemson, though, guys. I'll tell you this because I think I have the same feeling about Clemson and Oklahoma. I think they're both going to get better. I think obviously DJ is a young quarterback for them, and it showed in that last game. I actually listened to something interesting breaking down his game against Notre Dame, and maybe I should have listened to it before the show last week. That Notre Dame last season, when he had that great game, had sort of played to stop the run, and they like let him have a chance. I think you saw in Georgia's 5-star recruits, we saw them overwhelm him, and he couldn't really respond well. The game, I think Kirk Herbstreit said this, like sometimes how the game looks like slow and easy for the quarterbacks, well, it looked fast for him. Like it was coming really, really fast. And I think not having Travis Etienne there, not having Trevor Lawrence does hurt Clemson. I think they're in a similar boat as Oklahoma, though. The ACC is really down this season. We saw Miami get shellacked against Alabama. We saw North Carolina lose to Virginia Tech. It's the schedule sets up nicely for them, and as Tom said, they've got time to figure it out. So if they run the table, they'll still make the playoff. But again, same deal as Oklahoma. Like those programs are used to making the playoff. Like making the playoff is not like it is a success, but it's nothing spectacular for Clemson and Oklahoma. It's expected. Like, do I look at them as legitimate contenders? Like after having watched Alabama, the way they played week 1, Georgia's defense, like I think those teams are not going to beat those teams. Like there is cause for concern. It doesn't mean they're not going to make the playoffs. It doesn't mean they're not going to have a good season, but they're measured differently than, being a top 10 team, even being a top 4 team is not a success. They need to make the championship and win the championship for it to be a good season. And I am concerned about both of those programs because I don't think they have legitimate chances to win the national title.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have seen this matchup. Georgia and Clemson, unfortunately, was working that day, but it's the exact type of football game that I would have liked to see, a score of 10-3. And I think that I'd actually think that Clemson's in a little bit more trouble than UConn in terms of they have a really soft schedule the rest of the way. This is the one ranked opponent that they have. And even looking at their championship game for the ACC, we saw Miami, as you said, get knocked down big time against Alabama. We saw a UNC team that came in ranked 10th, I believe it was, and ended up losing on the road at Virginia Tech. Clemson has the risk of perhaps running the table the rest of the season and accruing a large number of wins. Are we really going to say that if, Georgia loses to Alabama in the SEC title game, that Georgia's all of a sudden not going to be in because they don't have a conference championship? I mean, at this point, we're probably looking at, an Ohio State probably could be pretty safe to make it in. Alabama and Georgia, I think, are pretty safe to make it in. Who's that fourth team going to be? I mean, Oklahoma, if they run the table, I would put them in over Clemson. Maybe Oregon, they run the table, I would put them in over Clemson at this point. Clemson's in a real tough spot here where they're going to have to rely on other programs falling short and also being dominant enough against the subpar competition in their conference just to make the playoffs. So I'm much more concerned about Clemson as far as even making the playoff, let alone contending for the championship.
Yeah, I've got two things to that, Tom. First off, it's funny how it's week 2 and we're already declaring what the playoff teams are. Talk about overreaction. But I mean, you're probably right. I look at the Clemson way in two ways. Their schedule is a good thing in that they have the potential to end up with a great record, as you mentioned. It's also a bad thing in the sense that since they don't play a lot of top-ranked teams, they have to win out. I mean, if they don't win out and win the ACC championship, they're out. So from now on, Clemson has to be perfect. Now, can they do it? Probably. I think if you think about it, like Ohio State, by the way, I'm not 100% sold on them winning the Big Ten. I don't think Oregon is going to win. I mean, they're probably going to win the Pac-12, but I don't know that they're going to go undefeated because they have to be undefeated too if they want to be in the playoff picture. Notre Dame didn't look as good as perhaps we thought. I know Brian Kelly certainly didn't think they looked good and had some interesting comments to say the least.
Is everyone over there alive?
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, I wouldn't pencil teams in, but the way it does look like I mean, it does set up like what I was thinking in my head. It sets up for like an Alabama Georgia national championship. It really does, because if Georgia wins every game and loses a close game to Alabama in the SEC championship, and they've got wins over Clemson, I think they play at Florida, and I think several other good wins. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but I know for a fact they play at Florida and they already beat Clemson. How are you going to keep Georgia out in that scenario? And honestly, Georgia probably looks like the second best team in football right now. And if they get a 3 seed, they can somehow get a 3 instead of a 4. The only thing that worries me is that it is a 1-4 matchup. But let's just say that a 1-loss Georgia, like maybe they're better than Oklahoma or Clemson, even if they have no losses. So I would be feeling pretty good if I'm Georgia. I know the next question is, who are we more impressed with, Alabama or Georgia? I'll say this. I did watch the Georgia game, Tom, and not only was it 10-3, there was 0 offensive touchdowns. The only score was a pick 6 in that game. So
my kind of game.
Drew's kind of game also, not my kind of game. But I'm still more impressed with Alabama. I know this was against Clemson, who has a very good defense. That's the other good thing about Clemson. As bad as their offense looked, again, it's a young quarterback, a new running back. They're going to get better. Their defense has 9 of 11 starters that I mentioned last week. They look phenomenal. But I think with Georgia, I was not very high on JT Daniels. I thought that he was the one guy that was getting too much Heisman love, and he didn't play very good. I mean, Georgia put up 3 points of offense on the board. Their touchdown was a defensive score. So I think what Alabama did was mind blowing. That they shellacked Miami, which is supposed to be a good team, 44-13, and that was Miami scored in garbage time. I mean, it was like 28-0 or something right off the bat. And I think for Alabama, the thing that was impressive to me was the quarterback play by Bryce Young. He comes in as a dual threat. There was a lot of question marks. Can he pass the ball? Well, he had 344 pass yards, 4 touchdowns, delivers like a perfect 40-yard pass in the air that goes for like a 90-yard something touchdown. I was blown away by Alabama. They looked really good on defense and offense. So I thought they were more impressive than Georgia personally. I know it's week 1. We don't want to proclaim a champion, but man, it sure does look like a repeat for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I mean, the Tide looked good. Georgia looked good. And yeah, that Georgia-Clemson game was my type of game. Low scoring, good defense. You know, the offense, I don't think the offenses are that bad. It was just really amazing defense.
Yeah, and what was incredible about Georgia was just how good their defensive linemen were. I mean, they were in Clemson's face all game long. Like, they couldn't breathe. I mean, it was just one of the most impressive defensive performances, frankly, that I've ever seen. I watched the entire game, and I was just wildly impressed by Georgia's defense. But Alabama, we know, can play defense too, and now they can play offense. So Alabama is a very impressive team. But one thing to keep in mind, it's week 1. Like, things change. Week 1, it's very easy to overreact. I think teams like Oklahoma, Oregon, who had played close games, Notre Dame, those are teams that, you know, very possibly could and probably will regroup and do better. So it's a little early, but my first impressions were that the SEC looks really, really good. And how about UCLA? They're 2-0. They beat LSU, though. Speaking of the SEC team, we're talking about Oregon. Maybe UCLA is a team that has a chance out of the Pac-12. The Pac-12 was a really weird conference because they had the monster UCLA win, but then they had Washington losing to Montana, and then they had Oregon struggling. So we'll see what happens in that conference. But really bad week for the ACC for sure, with North Carolina, Clemson both losing.
What I'm hearing is that the door is open for that 4th playoff spot to go to the Cincinnati Bearcats. That's what I'm taking out of this conversation.
Absolutely. Tom picked Cincinnati last week. The door is open. It's wide open. Cincinnati, I think, what did we say? They play Notre Dame, North Carolina, and who else was it? Iowa, maybe? I can't remember.
Something. There was another, like a pretty
Well, hold on.
decent,
I think it was. I think it
but
was.
not super rich program.
I think it was Indiana actually, and Indiana got shellacked against Iowa, and North Carolina lost, and Notre Dame struggled. So Cincinnati's tough schedule doesn't look as tough as it did before. Which is,
I know if they run the table and you put their resume up right next to Clemson's, I'm still taking Cincinnati's on resume. That's still a tougher schedule.
But who would you take on the field? Cincinnati and Clemson play right now. There's no way Cincinnati's beating Clemson.
I'm going to stick with the Bearcats. Thank you very much.
All right.
Wow, love it. Group of 5, Tom. Love it.
What kind of hat are you wearing, Drew? What is that on your hat?
Minor League Baseball, Winston-Salem Dash hat.
Are they good?
Are they good? No, but it's minor league baseball. I'm not sure it matters.
Interesting. I was just
They were
wondering.
very good 2-3 years ago with your boys, Tom Jimenez and Robert.
Oh,
Gavin
White Sox
Sheets.
players?
I saw all those. Well, yeah, it's a minor league baseball team.
Yeah, it's the single A affiliate.
The single A.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let's move on to locks, shall we?
Yeah, locks of the week.
Unless you want to talk minor league baseball all night, that's fine.
No, I don't. But I'll recap the locks, and then Drew, we'll have a question for you.
Okay.
So, and maybe we'll converse this and see what we'll do. So last week I went 2-1. I had the Rockies Rangers over 8.5 runs. I was wrong. There was 7 runs in that game. I had Giants Brewers under 7.5. Correct, the Brewers winning 3-1. There was 4 runs there. Then Mariners plus 1.5 against the Astros. I was right there. Mariners losing 4-3. Tom was 2-1. You had Fresno State plus 20.5 against Oregon. They covered, only losing by 7. UNC minus 5.5 at Virginia Tech. He missed that one. Vatek winning 17-10. And NC State minus 18 over South Florida. And that one went really well for Tom. Like, it seems like usually the locks, like, we sweat it out, but 45-0 win. And that was one that he wasn't sure about. That worked out well for him. And then, Drew, you went 1-2. World Cup qualifying, Faroe Islands and Israel under 2.5 goals. There was 4 goals in that game. The Faroe Islands winning 4-0. Latvia, Gibraltar under 2.5 goals. That went over as well. And then the one you did hit was Portugal, Ireland over 2.5 goals. There was like 2 goals in the last 10 minutes that pushed it to 3 goals. So you actually got lucky not to have an 0 for week. But on the season, this is like year 1 of locks of the week. And Tom and I finished tied for first place. Drew, you were way in the back. So our question for you is, should we share the first place title, or should we have like some sort of random game you pick to decide who wins this thing?
I mean, I don't know if there's a random game.
Like, we might have you pick a game for us to bet on, not NFL, something like MLB or college, and see if we have like until we find whoever.
Well, you guys have to disagree, right?
Right. So we can keep going through games until we disagree. Do you want to pick a game for us, or do you want to call it a tie? What do you think? Because we're kind of unsure.
I didn't know it was the end of the season, first of all.
It was news to me. It was news to me as well last week, where I missed kind of how many weeks of the NFL season. So, you know, I was feeling nervous about those college picks given we had so little information. But, you know,
well,
I think co-champions
tie breaks. I mean, or we could do, all right, over under 49ers Lions is 45. Whoever gets closest to the actual over under wins.
So how many total points? Or first off, let's see if we like the over or under, because I like the under in that game. Do you like the over or the under?
49ers Lions, it's 45.
No, I think I like the under as well. I don't think that's very good offense.
Pick a baseball game or a college game, because we want to do since NFL symbolizes start of week 2. Find us like a random college game.
Goodness.
Well, not like too
very
random.
difficult.
Top 25, hopefully.
Let's see here. Iowa State by 4.5 at home. I think Tom will go with Iowa. I think Tom will go with Iowa as well.
I have Iowa written down for our next segment. I think Co-Champion is just the simplest way to do it.
No, I think find another one.
Oh,
let's find one. Find one,
right.
Drew.
Drew's got a draft in like 20 minutes. We had to like move through the.
We're almost done here.
All right, Arizona State at home against UNLV. Sun Devils 33-point favorites. Who do you like?
I like UNLV plus 33.
I would like that too. That's too big a number.
Oh, goodness.
All right, pick one that's a close number. Top 25 team, close number.
There aren't any this week. It's not a great slate. We're going to have to pick a small game.
We'll pick like a team that's in the top. Oh, I guess because they'd be up.
There aren't any games. No, there aren't any games. Let's see here. You guys are making this difficult. Rutgers at Syracuse. Rutgers are favored by 2 at the Carrier Dome.
What do you think, Tom?
Rutgers are favored by how much?
2 at the Carrier Dome.
Give me Rutgers.
Okay. I'll take Syracuse.
You'll take Syracuse? Okay.
Let's do it. All
right. That's for the marble, something for which we've done no prep or anything.
Yeah.
That was the record.
For the record, I thought Co was fine.
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
We'll go to the alma mater, Mizzou 5-point dogs on the road at Kentucky. Do you guys agree?
Oh, I like Kentucky. Kentucky owns Mizzou.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mizzou.
All right. Whatever.
We'll
you guys do whatever you just talked about.
All right, Syracuse. We'll have fun. I was going to pick Rutgers, but I was like, Syracuse at home. Why not? Let's go with it.
All right. So I'm taking Rutgers -2. You're taking the home dog. Okay.
All right.
Decided, I guess.
The way we'll do locks of the week season 2, we're starting with we're gonna do 5 picks, but we're gonna do 3 NFL picks and 2 other picks. We've decided that -130 is the cutoff, but really everything is really lower than -130 for NFL picks because we're picking straight up on lines, unless you want to pick, like a favorite. But I've got 3 NFL lines that I'll start with that I feel great about. First off, Bucks -8 over the Cowboys. Tampa Bay returning all 22 starters from last year's Super Bowl winning team. That's just a crazy stat you don't see. Tampa's easily better than Dallas, even if everyone is healthy. Dak Prescott expected to play, but you know what? He missed 11 games last year. He missed all of the preseason. He missed most of the training camp practices. Even if Dak is there, I don't think he's going to be that sharp. And I think if he's not there, Cooper Rush has 3 career passes in his career, 1 career completion. They're back up there. So Dallas could be in big trouble. I think they're going to try to run the ball, but guess what? Tampa Bay is number 1 against the run on defense. So it's going to be a tough game. Tampa Bay at home wins by more than 8. Then I like the Rams -7.5 over the Bears. The Bears offensive line has so many injuries. Not good to begin with. Andy Dalton getting the start instead of Justin Fields. Not a very mobile quarterback. Look for Aaron Donald and company to have some sack lunch, to be in Dalton's face all day long. Rams, the top defense last year in yards and points allowed. These 2 teams did play last year. The Rams won 24-10. The Bears' only touchdown was a defensive score, a scoop and score. So Matthew Stafford certainly used to playing the Bears. He picks up a win over a familiar opponent in that game. The Rams win by 8 or more. And then how about some bad football, as we're going to stay with the home teams. We go to the Jaguars and Texans, 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. But I think that Jacksonville is a whole nother level of bad. They were 1-15 last year, the worst team in the NFL. I think they won the opening week and then they lost every game since. In fact, the last time they had a road win was December 15th, 2019. So we got to go all the way back to 2019 to find a road win for Jacksonville. I like Houston plus 2.5 at home. I know they don't have Deshaun Watson starting, but Tyrod Taylor is a very underrated quarterback. He's 24-21-1 as a starter. He has 54 touchdowns and just 20 interceptions in his career. he's a pretty average quarterback in the NFL. In fact, he probably still would be starting if he didn't have his punctured lung or whatever it was last season that allowed Justin Herbert to play for the Chargers. By the way, Houston owns Jacksonville. They've won 6 straight in this series. And Trevor Lawrence and that offense really, really struggled in the preseason. They finally got going their last game against Dallas, but Dallas lost every preseason game. So whoever Dallas was playing in the preseason wasn't very good. So I just don't really like Jacksonville. I think Houston at home, not only should they cover 2.5, I expect Houston to win outright in that game. So give me Houston plus 2.5 against the Jaguars, Tampa -8 over Dallas, LA -7.5 over the Bears. All home teams week 1, going with the home teams.
Okay, so to clarify everything, we're doing 3 definite NFL picks and then 2 other wild card picks, which could also include NFL, correct?
Correct. You can pick 5 NFL if you want.
Okay. So yeah, so the quickest one, I agree with you, Rams -7.5 over the Bears. This is not going to be a fun game on Sunday Night Football. Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth will be talking about literally anything else by the time we get to the fourth quarter. So I've got a couple different NFL games to go with as well. Give me the Eagles to cover 3.5 in Atlanta. I may be too deep into my fantasy football cups to see straight on this one, but give me Jalen Hurts being electric with his legs. Atlanta not that great on defense. I'm looking for the Eagles to keep it close late on the road. And then I'll also lay 7.5 with the 49ers on the road in Detroit. We talked about the over-under in that one, probably going to go under in 2 teams that don't have great offense. 49ers have great defense, though, and I think they can score just enough to cover that touchdown number. Lions just don't have a quarterback. Their running back situation is great. I don't even know if I can name a receiver. I know their tight end, TJ Hawkinson, but who else is Jared Goff going to throw the ball to? And then we haven't even talked about Kyle Shanahan as a coach. This is the healthiest that the 49ers are going to be all season. So give me the 49ers laying 7.5 on the road. So those are my 3 NFL picks. Rams -7.5, 49ers -7.5, Eagles plus 3.5.
I probably agree with all of them. So maybe we'll both start 3-0. I know we didn't have the best finish although I guess we both finished 2-1 the last week. But I feel pretty good about your picks. I mean, Eagles and Falcons, it could go either way, but I like the other 2. I think the Lions are abysmal.
Yeah, for my 3 NFL picks, I'll go Cowboys +8 over the Bucks, Bengals +3 over the Vikings, and the Giants +3 over the Broncos.
So Drew Brackett is big on the Bengals this year. That's what we learned on the show. Drew Brackett's got some Bengals stock. What's their over-under on wins? You're gonna put down like a couple $1,000s and they're over-under real quickly. You know what my neighbor is doing? His brother is a big bettor, and he was telling me that his brother is putting $1,000 on, I think, like over 12.5. I think on the Bills win total this season. So he's definitely not like with like Tom Castleman, because Tom is like doubting the Bills as getting second. So my neighbor's cousin's throwing down $1,000 on the Bills win total. I think he said it was 13, 12.5. I think something like that. They need to win 13 games, I think he said.
Okay, that's a lot of cheddar to put down. I'm out here with playing penny slots if I wanted to do any sort of gambling. Man, I'm glad I stay away from the sort of.
And that one would be stressful.
What are the wild card picks for you guys this week?
Yeah, so wild card picks. I've got some college football. I've got 2 ones that I feel really good about. So I'm going to go with Florida -28 at South Florida. So South Florida lost 45-0 at NC State week 1. Florida is much better than NC State. A good week for the Gator athletes to shine. A new quarterback, Emory Jones, is a really good runner. He should run all over South Florida. Gators had 400 rush yards week 1 against Florida Atlantic. South Florida gave up 293 rush yards against NC State. So look for the ground game to get going for Florida. They should win by more than 4 touchdowns, no problem. And then I like Michigan -6 over Washington. Maybe I'm overreacting to week one, but the fact that Washington couldn't beat Montana out of the FCS at home, losing 13-7 really scares me. Michigan at home coming off a big 47-14 win over Western Michigan. So I like Michigan to win by 7 or more over Washington, no problem.
All right, so for my wild card picks, I'm going to go a little bit different route on same teams that were playing last week. Give me NC State to cover 2.5 points against Mississippi State. NC State's returning a lot of players this season. We saw them dominate in that game against South Florida, and I think they'll be good enough to beat a good SEC team in Mississippi State. And then I'll go back to the NFL, as I don't really like much of anything in baseball. So I'm going to lay 5 points with the Panthers going up against the lowly Jets. I know Zach Wilson is a well-regarded quarterback prospect, but I am not convinced about the rest of the talent around him just yet. This is something that will have to kind of gel over for now. I'll take a healthy Christian McCaffrey coming back, good receiving weapons, and even if not Bradford, Darnold. Even if Darnold is not, the level of quarterback that he could be, he's still only 24. There's still talent in the tank there. I think that the Panthers will do enough to win by a touchdown or more.
It's like a revenge game for Sam Darnold.
Is he on the Panthers?
Yeah, right?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got Italy versus Lithuania, a World Cup qualifier, under 2.5. And then EPL on Saturday, Crystal Palace and Tottenham under 2.5.
All right. Well, your unders haven't done as well lately in soccer, so we'll see. We'll see if that train has run out. But this is a whole new locks of the week for season 2, so it'll be a lot of fun to track. Now we've had a new segment in the show, Drew, since you've been gone. Like that song by Kelly Clarkson, "Since You've Been Gone." Anyways, I'm not a very good singer.
No,
but
you sang it wrong.
Yeah, I sang it wrong. But the new segment is sports trivia. So every week we'll ask some sports trivia. I've got a question this week, but I'll let Tom do it since he's got an NFL themed question. So what's your sports trivia for us, Tom?
Let's see. I thought here it is. So this year, the NFL is going to be playing 17 regular season games, up from the previous 16. So, got a 2-part question, topical here. When did the NFL last change the number of regular season games played, and how many games did they play before they went to 16?
They played 13. Is that right?
1975.
They played 14 in 78.
14
pretty
and
cool.
78. Oh, we were close. Yeah, it was 14. You're right. Oh, I think I knew that, and I guessed 13. In my head, as soon as I said it, I thought it was 14.
Yeah, no, this is the first time it'll be an odd number of games. So gone are the days of anybody ever being a 500. Well, not
you could
ever.
tie.
We'll go to an 18-game season. But yeah, barring any ties, you're either above or below 500. This is going to affect, I think, how coaching jobs are viewed going forward, because how many times have people said, "Oh, like they're a winning coach at 8-8, they're a 500 coach." Now you're above or below average.
Team. Like
There's
the Bears,
no
bring Matt Nagy back. He made the playoffs. 8-8, he made the playoffs. Let's bring him back. Lovie Smith went 11-5, but didn't make the playoffs. Let's get rid of him. That's how it works. Oh, but you made the playoffs. Washington was 7-9. Oh, but you made the playoffs. It's all good. Ridiculous.
So no bitterness here.
No bitterness.
Salutes and statements?
Yeah. What do you guys got?
I'll jump in just with a light little thing here. I've watched a little bit of preseason football, and I have to say the viewing results are in. I do not like the number change that the NFL has allowed, the way that college players will allow a linebacker or a defensive lineman to wear the number 9, a safety to wear the number 4. For whatever reason, it just doesn't look right to me. Eddie Jackson on the Bears is a safety. He wore number 4 in college, wore 39 as a professional. Now he's going back to the number 4. And it's just weird. It just looks not right. So I guess my statement is not terribly controversial or anything like that, but I just don't like this move, this look whatsoever. It's confusing, and I'm sure I'll get used to it over time. But we're talking about 29 years of built-in professional numbers are in a set system based on where you play. This is going to be a bit of an adjustment, to say the least.
By the way, I disagree with you. I think they should
You
go
like
back to
him?
Mac Jones being number 50. I think it's funny. He was number 50, I think, at first to start the preseason. I think a quarterback wearing like number 98, that's hilarious. You know what I used to do in Madden NFL
it's so weird.
football, where you can create a player? I used to create a quarterback who was number 99, and he was like 7 foot tall, 450 pounds. It was just hilarious.
Well, that part is objectively fun, the cartoonishly outside player, but like the numbers where you lose me.
Okay.
Like it's just cringy to me. I don't know how you feel about it, Drew.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I have no opinion on numbers.
Of course
I barely know the numbers as it is.
Do you have any salute or statements? I know we got to get you out of here in a second for fantasy draft, but let's go.
So a PGA golfer at the Tour Championship, Joaquin Niemann. So they had an odd number of players, and so he was the first guy to tee off on Sunday, and he was alone. So he decided to play speed golf, and he played in an hour and 53 minutes. He broke the record. So he shot 2 over, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah, not bad for speed golf.
Yeah, but he broke the record for the fastest 18-hole golf round on the PGA Tour.
That is really awesome.
Broke it by what did he break it by? It was Kevin Na's record. He broke it by like 6 minutes or something.
Now that's a trivia question.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
Cool. I love that. That's really cool.
I thought that was pretty good.
Immense focus, because golf is normally one of those sports where like you take your time, like you measure the hole, you see where the green is. I'm not a golfer, but I know this is what the guys do, and they see how to play the ball. But this guy just literally went up and hit the ball. Like that's awesome. So, and this was an amateur,
he was like
or professional. What was this?
This was at the Tour Championship.
At the Tour Championship?
Yeah. He's
wow.
that professional. Yeah, he walked on. He played the round, and he still took home $405,000. So not a bad day.
That is really cool. I didn't watch the Tour Championship. I think I saw Patrick Cantley beat John Rahm in a dramatic finish on SportsCenter, but that's really cool. Speaking of cool stuff, how about the U.S. Open? I know you guys haven't been watching as much tennis as me, but this has been one of the all-time great tournaments. We've had so many comebacks, down 2-0, coming back to win in 5 sets. We have 3 teenagers in the quarterfinals. On the women's side, the quarters featured no past champions, only one major winner in the final 8. Actually, who I'm cheering for is the now sensation Hernandez, who has beat several past champions. She just had a crazy win over Svitolina. Leylah Fernandez, an 18-year-old, she also beat Osaka and Kerber, several former champs. So many dramatic matches, 5-set matches, really close games. It's just been a phenomenal U.S. Open. If you haven't watched much of it, try and watch this week too. Anything can happen on the women's side. I do think Belinda Bencic is going to win because she won the gold in Tokyo, and she's got a lot of momentum going. On the men's side, Novak Djokovic is the favorite, but at this point, we've seen everything and anything at the U.S. Open. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. If you're not a tennis fan, watch some tennis this week. I promise you, it's worthwhile.
Love it.
You watched it, Drew, or no?
Haven't watched much. No, I haven't
watched much, because I know Drew's a tennis fan. Drew and I
I've been monitoring, but haven't watched much.
We used to bet on tennis matches. We played in college, and we bet on the tennis matches. And whenever we bet like $20, I would always win. And then we bet $50, Drew would always win. So our record was probably around 500, but I'm like positive that Drew netted more money, because whenever there was more at stake, he ended up coming up more clutch. So
Drew doesn't play for milk money.
Playing for milk money. But that does it for Salute Your Sports. Drew Brackett's got a fantasy draft to get off to. We, of course, are in the same fantasy league. We'll keep you updated on those standings. Week 1 coming up, and a lot to look forward to with the NFL season. We'll see just how right or wrong we are. Have a great day, everyone.